My code was projected 20 feet wide on the screen at our all-hands meeting, and Evan Reed was standing beside it accepting a $32,000 raise while my name had been erased from every slide. The worst part wasn't the applause. It was my manager, Claire, looking straight at me from the front row and giving me a tiny warning shake of her head, like I was the one about to ruin everything. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 34 then, a senior back-end engineer at Bright Ridge Systems in Raleigh, North Carolina. We built software for regional banks, the kind of invisible systems that decide whether a loan application is risky or whether a wire transfer looks suspicious. Not glamorous, but steady. My salary was $118,000, and I was carrying a mortgage on a small brick house in Cary with a squeaky back door and a maple tree that dropped leaves into my gutters every October. Evan Reed was 29, charming in that polished, practiced way that made people trust him before he earned it. He wore expensive gray sweaters, kept a tiny bottle of cologne in his desk drawer, and somehow knew everyone's birthday. He joined our fraud detection team in January 2022, and I became his unofficial mentor because Claire Voss, our engineering director, asked me to. "Dan, you're the strongest architect on the team," Claire said, tapping her silver pen against her notebook. "Help Evan get settled. He's got potential." So I did. I walked him through our code base, our deployment pipeline, our messy old documentation. We ate lunch at Benny's Deli twice a week, where he always ordered turkey on rye and asked smart questions. When my father had a minor surgery in March, Evan covered my on-call shift without complaint. "I've got you, man," he told me over Slack. Family first. That mattered to me. In tech, people talk a lot about teamwork, but most are guarding their own little kingdoms. Evan seemed different. I trusted him with my branch notes, my architecture diagrams, even the private test harness I'd built on my own time to speed up development. That trust tasted normal then, like burnt office coffee and the cinnamon gum Evan always chewed during stand-ups. The project was called Sentinel Flow, and I poured 7 months of my life into it. It was a machine learning audit layer that flagged suspicious banking patterns without freezing legitimate customer accounts. By July, my version had reduced false positives by 41% in testing. That number mattered. It meant banks could save money, customers wouldn't get locked out of their accounts, and Bright Ridge could sign a $4.6 million renewal with First Carolina Trust. The first strange moment came on August 9th. I remember because the air conditioning on the 4th floor was broken and the office smelled like warm carpet and microwave pasta. Evan leaned over my cubicle wall and said, "Hey, can you send me the latest scoring module? Claire wants me to run a presentation draft." I frowned. "Presentation draft? I'm presenting Sentinel Flow on Friday." Yeah, he said quickly, chewing his gum harder. "She just wants visuals. You know, executive-friendly stuff." I sent him the file. 2 days later, I noticed my Jira tickets had been reassigned. Not closed. Reassigned. 3 of the core implementation tasks now listed Evan as the owner. My stomach tightened, but I told myself it was an administrative mistake. Claire was always juggling too much. Then on August 18th, I saw a $780 charge on the company card tied to our team budget for design consulting. The receipt had Evan's name and a note. Sentinel Flow pitch deck cleanup. When I asked him about it near the elevators, his smile froze for half a second. "Oh, Claire wanted it polished," he said. "You know how leadership is. They like shiny charts. Why didn't anyone loop me in?" He patted my shoulder like I was being dramatic. "Don't worry, Dan. Your work speaks for itself." The elevator doors opened with a soft ding, and he stepped inside before I could answer. I can still remember the stale metallic smell from the elevator and the way my hands felt clammy around my laptop bag. The discovery happened on September 2nd at 10:07 a.m. in Conference Room A, where the executive all-hands was being streamed to every office. I was standing in the back because all the chairs were taken. The room smelled like dry erase markers and over-roasted coffee. My phone buzzed with a message from our QA lead, Priya Nair. "Are you seeing this?" I looked up. On the screen was the title slide, Sentinel Flow, Adaptive Risk Scoring Engine, created by Evan Reed. My ears started ringing so loudly that the applause sounded underwater. Evan stood near the podium, smiling with his hands folded in front of him. Slide after slide showed my architecture diagrams, my benchmarking charts, my exact phrasing from internal notes. Even my color-coded flowchart was there, except the footer where I'd put, prepared by Daniel Mercer, had been cropped out. Claire sat in the front row, chin lifted, eyes fixed forward. Our CEO, Martin Hale, beamed. Evan's innovation secured the first Carolina renewal and opened the door for 2 additional banking partners. This is the kind of ownership we reward. Then he handed Evan a framed certificate. Evan laughed into the microphone. I just saw a problem and couldn't let it sit. I spent a lot of late nights on this, but it was worth it. My mouth went dry. I could feel my pulse confrontation in my neck. I pushed through the standing crowd toward the side aisle. Claire caught my movement and stood, blocking me near the wall. "Daniel," she whispered sharply, "not here." "That's my work," I said. My voice came out rough. Her perfume, something floral and heavy, hit me as she leaned closer. "We'll talk after. Do not make a scene." On stage, Evan said. Of course, I had support from the team. Support. The word landed like a stone in my stomach. After the meeting, I walked straight to Claire's office. The blinds were half closed, cutting the sunlight into thin strips across her glass desk. Evan was already there, sitting casually with one ankle over his knee. "Close the door," Claire said. I didn't sit. My hands were shaking too much. "Explain it," I said. Evan sighed like I had inconvenienced him. "Dan, I refined your early ideas. That's collaboration. You copied my code, my diagrams, my benchmark results." Claire folded her hands. "Daniel, ownership is more complicated than commit history." "Commit history?" I stared at her. "It will show I built it." Evan's eyes flickered. Claire opened her laptop and turned it toward me. The main repo showed a merge from Evan's branch dated August 26th. My stomach dropped. He had squashed commits and merged a clean version under his name. My original feature branch was gone from the visible branch list. "I don't know what you're trying to prove," Evan said quietly, "but accusing me because you're disappointed is not a good look." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the back of the chair until my knuckles ached. Claire's voice softened, but her eyes stayed cold. "The raise and title adjustment have already been approved. Evan is now lead engineer for Sentinel Flow. You'll support him during the rollout." That was layer 1. Layer 2 came 3 days later, when Priya asked me to meet her in the parking lot after work. The September air was humid, and cicadas buzzed in the trees beyond the asphalt. She looked nervous, clutching a folder against her chest. "I printed something before it disappeared," she said. Inside were screenshots from our internal GitLab audit logs. Evan had not just merged my work. He had requested admin access through Claire on August 22nd, then deleted my development branch and renamed his fork to match the project namespace. Claire approved it at 11:43 p.m. My throat tightened. Claire was part of it. Priya nodded. "There's more." She showed me an email chain. Claire had promised Evan the lead role if Sentinel Flow landed the renewal because she wanted him visible for a new innovation group she was pitching to Martin. My name appeared once. "Daniel is reliable, but not executive-facing," Claire wrote. "Evan can sell the story better." I read that sentence 4 times. The parking lot lights hummed above us. My skin felt cold, even though my shirt was sticking to my back. Then came the first twist that made the betrayal almost impressive in its ugliness. Evan had submitted my test harness, the one I built at home on weekends, as part of his original process improvement documentation. He included screenshots from my private GitHub repository, not the company repo, my personal account. How did he even get those? Priya whispered. I knew. Months earlier, at Benny's Deli, Evan had asked to borrow my laptop because his battery died before a demo. I'd handed it over while I got napkins and sweet tea. He must have found the folder, copied the repo URL, maybe even grabbed my cache credentials. The thought made my stomach twist. That week nearly flattened me. I called in sick 2 days and sat in my kitchen wearing the same navy hoodie, staring at the little green light on my router like it might explain how I had been so stupid. Food tasted like cardboard. I lost 8 pounds by the end of September because every meal turned into 3 bites and a knot in my stomach. At 3 a.m., The house sounded enormous. The refrigerator clicked. The maple branches scratched against the window. I would replay Evan's voice. Your work speaks for itself. Then Claire's, not here. My father called on September 11th and asked why I sounded hollow. Work is messy, I said. He paused. My dad was a retired electrician, a man who could hear a lie through copper wire. Daniel, people can take credit in a room, he said, but they can't take fingerprints off the work. That sentence stayed with me. It sat in my chest like a small pilot light. The turning point came the next morning when Evan posted on LinkedIn. Proud to announce my promotion to principal engineer after leading Sentinel Flow from concept to launch. The photo showed him holding the certificate, grinning beside Claire. Under it, Martin commented, well earned. My fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. The heat rose from my chest to my face. Then I noticed something in the screenshot of his slide deck behind him, a tiny label in the lower corner of a graph. DMP_local_V17. DMP, Daniel Mercer prototype. He had missed one watermark. I stopped shaking. I opened a fresh notebook, wrote the date at the top, and underlined one sentence. Make the truth impossible to ignore. The plan took 6 weeks, and I moved like a man defusing a wire. First, I contacted an employment attorney, Marisol Chun, who worked out of a brick office near downtown Raleigh. Her conference room smelled like lemon polish, and she listened without interrupting while I laid out the screenshots. Do not confront them again, she said, sliding a yellow legal pad toward me. Preserve everything. Quietly, I exported every email, Slack message, Jira change, calendar invite, and GitLab audit log I still had access to. Priya became my first ally. Then our DevOps engineer, Marcus Bell, joined after I showed him the branch deletion timestamps. Marcus leaned back in his chair, eyes wide. They used admin rights to rewrite authorship. That's not collaboration. That's a cleanup job. We recovered archived build artifacts from a backup server in Charlotte. Those artifacts contained metadata Evan didn't know existed. Compiler timestamps, machine IDs, and path references from my workstation, D. Mercer, WS4. Every nightly build before August 22nd pointed to me. Then I remembered my own habit. In complex code, I embedded harmless internal comments with initials and dates so I could track experimental logic. Not visible to users, not harmful, just breadcrumbs. Sentinel Flow had 13 of them. One read, DM06-14. Adjust threshold after Patel test batch. Evan had changed variable names, but he didn't understand the deeper model tuning. He missed the comments buried in test fixtures. The second twist arrived when Marisol subpoena prepared my personal GitHub access logs. Evan's home IP address in Durham had accessed my private repository on July 31st at 9:18 p.m. using my session token. That meant he hadn't merely copied a file at work. He had entered my personal work without permission. Marisol's eyes narrowed when she saw it. Now we're past office politics. The final move was a trap, but a legal one. First Carolina Trust scheduled a live technical review on October 19th because they wanted to expand Sentinel Flow into 2 more divisions. Evan would present as lead. Claire would attend. Martin would be there. So would the client's CTO. I asked to be included as deployment support. Claire denied it. Marisol sent a formal evidence preservation letter to Brightridge's general counsel at 7:30 a.m. on October 18th, naming Sentinel Flow, commit alteration, personal repository access, and retaliation concerns. At 8:12 a.m., I got a meeting invite from legal for the next day's review. Claire appeared at my desk 10 minutes later, her face pale under her makeup. What did you do? She asked. I looked up slowly. I made sure the company had accurate records. Her jaw tightened. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I said. You did. The execution began at 9 a.m. in the 7th floor client suite. Rain tapped against the windows, and the room smelled like fresh coffee and new carpet. Evan stood at the front in a blue blazer, clicking through slides with that same easy smile. Claire sat rigidly beside Martin. I sat across from Brightridge's general counsel, Renee Watkins, with Marcus and Priya on my left. Evan started strong. Sentinel Flow was born from a simple idea I had in February. Marcus shifted, and his chair squeaked. Evan glanced over, annoyed. The client's CTO, Asha Menon, asked a technical question about threshold drift in rural transaction patterns. Evan blinked. That's handled by the adaptive layer, he said. Asha waited. Specifically how? Evan clicked to a diagram. My diagram. His throat bobbed. Before he could stumble further, Renee cleared her throat. Daniel, since you supported the deployment artifacts, can you walk us through that? Claire's eyes snapped to Renee. I don't think that's necessary. Renee didn't look at her. I do. My heart hammered, but my voice came out steady. I stood, feeling the cool edge of the conference table leave my fingertips, and connected my laptop. I didn't accuse anyone at first. I explained the model, the tuning batches, the June false positive issue, the July regression fix. Asha nodded along. Then I opened the archived build report. This is the August 16th nightly build, I said. You'll see the path references here, D, Mercer, WS4. And here are the test fixture comments from June. Evan's face lost color. Dan, he said with a brittle laugh. We don't need to go into old drafts. We do, Renee said. A hush spread across the room, so complete I could hear the rain tapping the glass. The near miss came when my laptop briefly froze switching to the GitLab audit export. For 3 long seconds, the cursor spun. Claire exhaled through her nose like she had been handed a miracle. Then Marcus slid a USB drive across the table. Use mine. The file opened. There it was, Claire approving Evan's admin request, Evan deleting my branch, Evan merging the clean fork, all timestamped down to the second. Asha leaned back slowly. Martin's mouth opened, but no words came out. Evan stood. This is being taken out of context. I clicked one more file, my personal GitHub access logs. Evan's home IP. My private repository. The room seemed to shrink around him. Evan, Renee said, her voice quiet and sharp. Did you access Mr. Mercer's private repository? He looked at Claire. Claire looked at the table. That silence was the climax. Not shouting, not chaos. Just the silence of 2 people realizing every escape door had closed. Martin finally spoke. Claire, did you authorize the removal of Daniel's branch? Claire's lips parted. I was trying to streamline ownership for the client presentation. Answer the question, Renee said. Claire swallowed. Yes. Evan's polished confidence cracked. His hands trembled around the presentation remote. I did the final integration, he said. That counts for something. My voice was calm enough that it surprised me. You took my code, erased my name, accessed my private repository, accepted a raise, and let me sit in a room while people applauded you. Asha closed her laptop with a soft, final snap. First, Carolina will pause expansion until Brightridge completes an internal review. We require Daniel Mercer as technical lead on any future Sentinel Flow work. Martin looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Renee stood. Evan, Claire, please leave your laptops and badges on the table and come with me. Evan stared at me then, really stared, like I had betrayed him by not staying quiet. His face was gray. Claire's hand shook as she unclipped her badge. The plastic clattered against the polished wood, louder than it should have. Within 48 hours, Evan was terminated for misconduct and unauthorized access. Claire resigned before the board finished its review, but everyone knew why. Brightridge sent a formal correction to the entire company crediting me as the creator and lead architect of Sentinel Flow. The email went out at 4:05 p.m. on October 21st. I read it 3 times while standing in my kitchen, the smell of tomato soup warming on the stove, my hands finally steady. The raise Evan had been given was reversed. I received a promotion to principal engineer, a salary adjustment to $156,000, and a $45,000 retention bonus tied to the first Carolina expansion. Marisol helped me settle the personal repository issue quietly but firmly, with compensation and written acknowledgement that my work had been misappropriated. The social fallout was just as complete. Evan deleted his LinkedIn post, but not before half the company had screenshots. Claire's innovation group vanished from the roadmap. Priya got promoted to QA automation lead. Marcus received a spot bonus for preserving evidence. First Carolina renewed the full expansion 2 months later on one condition: I remained a technical owner. As for Evan, I heard he tried to explain it as a misunderstanding at another Raleigh startup. Someone there knew Priya. He didn't get the job. A year later, I walked into Brightridge's annual product summit wearing a navy suit I bought with part of my bonus. Sentinel Flow had become our flagship platform, generating over $9 million in new contracts. Martin introduced me from the stage, not as support, not as reliable background labor, but as the architect whose integrity protected this company. The applause felt different that time. Clean. Earned. Mine. Betrayal teaches you exactly how heavy silence can be. Revenge, the right kind, teaches you how powerful the truth becomes when you document it, protect it, and deliver it at the perfect moment. Evan got the raise for my code. I got the career,